This is a great question. Let's explore it. So with the inclusion of Seattle and Las Vegas in the NBA, we now have 32 teams. With Seattle and Las Vegas being on the western side of the United States, we can look at two teams in the Western Conference currently who can move east and be part of the Eastern Conference. The obvious choices here being Minnesota, Memphis, and New Orleans. And you know what that means? It's map time! So as I said before, we have Minnesota, Memphis, and New Orleans as our candidates to join the Eastern Conference. So with the West getting two more teams, one of these three needs to head east. So despite my comment in the other video, the two teams that I think should stay are New Orleans and Memphis because of their proximity to the teams in Oklahoma and Texas. Ultimately, I think the team that absolutely needs to move east is Minnesota. They need to head over here because there is absolutely nothing over here, and it's not like the Dakotas are going to be getting an NBA team anytime soon. Although that would be kind of interesting. So here's what the conferences would look like with 16 teams in the East and the West. As you can see, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves in the East and the Seattle Sonics and the Las Vegas Wildcards in the West. Yes, I called Las Vegas the Wildcards because I have zero faith in professional sports teams coming up with any kind of interesting nickname whatsoever, especially after the whole Commanders thing. But what about divisions? Well, divisions don't mean as much as they used to, but they certainly still play a role in scheduling. So with 16 teams in each conference, I imagine we'd have 4 divisions each of 4 teams. Pause to read. Now, there isn't an exactly perfect way to do this because there are certain clusters of teams in some areas. Like in the North and the Central and the East, you have 7 teams that are clustered together, and so I just kind of randomly had to throw in the Washington Wizards. Even though geographically they're a little closer to the Northeast. But all things considered, it's still not a huge travel commitment for the Wizards. And then in the West, you have like Dallas not in the same division as the other Texas teams. Like the Northwest division makes sense. You have Oregon, Washington, and NorCal. Southwest, you have Vegas, the 2 LA teams, and the Suns. All in all, while there's a couple of teams that might be mildly inconvenienced by this, there's a couple of teams that this will do a ton for. Look, the travel for some teams are absolutely massive right now. For starters, let's take a look at Minnesota. At the moment, look how far they have to travel. They're also in the Northwest division with Portland. And under this new format, look how little they'll have to travel. They're right next door to the teams they'd be playing against on the regular. The other team, and the team I think this helps out the most, are my own Portland Trail Blazers. Of all teams in professional sports, the Portland Trail Blazers travel more than any other team, and it's not even close. With Minnesota going to the east and the inclusion of Seattle and Las Vegas, Portland's travel time will go down big time. All in all, I'm pretty stoked on this potentially being a real thing. But what do you think about all this? What do you think of my divisions? What do you think of the possible 2 new cities? I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm also contemplating doing a video on how I think the rebirth of the Seattle Supersonics could be the best thing that could ever happen to the Portland Trail Blazers.